The grand chamber of Nexus Station floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and light, where the greatest powers of the galaxy gathered. Inside, representatives from 200 species sat in their designated seats, speaking through translators about trade routes and cultural disputes. The air hummed with a dozen different breathing apparatuses and the soft glow of holographic displays. Counselor Verathon of the Meridian Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes and looked across the chamber. His 4 eyes fixed on one particular seat that had remained empty for 50 years. The nameplate still read, Earth, Humanity, in standard galactic script. I see our human friends have once again declined to grace us with their presence, Verathon announced, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Several council members chittered and buzzed in amusement. Ambassador Zhara of the Lirani Collective, a peaceful species with pale blue skin and large dark eyes, spoke up from her seat. Perhaps we should show more patience. Humanity is still adjusting to galactic society. Adjusting, barked Krotak, the reptilian representative from the Zephrani coalition. It has been 50 years since first contact, 50 years since they sent their ambassador to the first meeting and then vanished. This is not adjustment. This is cowardice. Verathon nodded in agreement. The humans attended one meeting. One. Their ambassador Park stood at that very seat, listened to our welcome, made polite excuses about needing time for internal reorganization, and never returned. Not once, in 247 sessions. The council chamber filled with the sounds of agreement from dozens of species. Earth had become something of a joke among the galactic community. The primitive world that got invited to the table and then ran away. Zhara tried again. Their initial scans showed a species with potential. Perhaps they face challenges we do not understand. The only challenge they face is their own inadequacy, Verathon said dismissively. I propose we remove them from the registry entirely. Let them rot in their little corner of space. Before the vote could be called, Warmaster Draktar of the Korthak Dominion stood. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick armored plates that had evolved on a brutal high-gravity world. His species had only joined the council 20 years ago, but they had made their presence known. Why do we waste time discussing absent primitives when real matters demand our attention? Draktar's voice rumbled through the chamber like thunder. Verathon gestured for him to continue. 15 systems along the outer rim are currently undefended. Their inhabitants have petitioned this council for protection 3 times. 3 times you have debated and done nothing. Draktar's eyes swept across the chamber. The Korthak Dominion grows tired of this council's endless talk. A small mammalian delegate from one of the rim worlds stood up, trembling. Please, honored council. The Korthak fleets gather near our borders. We have seen their ships. We cannot defend ourselves. We need help. Verathon waved a dismissive hand. We have discussed this matter extensively. Military intervention requires careful consideration. We cannot simply deploy forces every time someone feels threatened. We have 50 survey ships, the small delegate pleaded. No weapons. No shields. If the Dominion attacks, we will be helpless. Draktar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Then perhaps you should consider whose protection to seek more carefully. Giara stood, her voice sharp. Is that a threat, Warmaster? It is a statement of fact. Draktar replied calmly. This council has debated trade agreements and cultural exchange programs for decades, while allowing its military capabilities to wither. The Meridian Empire once commanded a fleet of 5,000 ships. How many do you have now, Counselor Verathon? The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew the answer. The Meridian fleet existed mostly in historical records and propaganda. Perhaps 300 ships remained operational, and most of those were outdated. Verathon's face flushed with anger. The Meridian Empire maintained sufficient forces for defense, but not for protecting others, Draktar observed. Which is why these rim worlds have no hope. He sat down. His point made, the small delegate looked around desperately, but no one met their eyes. Finally, they sat down, defeated. Ja'ara felt her heart sink. She had served on this council for 30 years and watched it slowly decay from a union of mutual protection into a social club where nothing ever got decided. Species maintained tiny defense forces, assuming the collective would protect them if needed. But that collective strength had never actually been tested. Until now. The session dragged on for another 6 hours. They debated regulations for asteroid mining. They discussed standardized translation protocols. They argued about whether species from high-gravity worlds deserved special accommodations in council facilities. Not once did they address the desperate pleas from the rim worlds. When the session finally ended, Ja'ara made her way to the observation deck. Through the transparent walls, she could see the stars stretching out in every direction. Somewhere out there was Earth, the planet that had heard the galaxy's invitation and decided to stay home. A young Lirani officer named Sujin Choi approached her. Sujin was special, the child of a human father and Lirani mother who had met during the early cultural exchange programs. She served as a liaison officer, one of the few people who maintained regular contact with human outposts. "Ambassador, you defended them again," Sujin said quietly. "Someone should," Ja'ara replied. "Though I wonder sometimes, if Verathon is right, why would they ignore us so completely?" Sujin looked out at the stars. "My father used to say, humanity learned long ago that when powerful people gather to talk, the talking often matters less than what happens when everyone goes home." Wise words, but cynical. Maybe. Or maybe just realistic. Sujin hesitated. "I receive reports from the Sol system sometimes. Through family connections. The humans are not idle, Ambassador." "What do you mean?" "I mean they are building something. I do not know what exactly. But every report shows more construction, more industry, more organization. Whatever they are doing, they have been doing it for 50 years without pause." Ja'ara considered this. Perhaps they are simply developing their own world. Nothing sinister in that. Perhaps. Sujin did not sound convinced. Back in the council chamber, Verathon stood alone, looking at Earth's empty seat. In truth, he did not think about the humans much. They were irrelevant. A footnote in galactic politics. The real concern was the Korthak and their growing aggression. The Meridian Empire had grown comfortable over centuries of peace. Their military had become ceremonial, more focused on parades than combat readiness. And now a species of warriors had joined the council and was testing boundaries. Verathon knew what others did not. The Meridian fleet had fewer than 200 operational ships. The rest were museum pieces, or had been sold off decades ago to fund social programs. If the Korthak decided to attack, the council would have no answer. He looked at Earth's nameplate one more time and laughed bitterly. At least the humans had been smart enough to stay away from this mess. When the storm came, they would be safe in their distant corner of space, untouched by galactic politics. The empty seat seemed to mock him in the dim light. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance. And in one small yellow star system, humanity continued their work. 3 months passed. And Counselor Verathon received the message he had been dreading. 5 rim world systems had gone dark simultaneously. No communications. No distress signals. Just silence. Within hours, refugee ships began arriving at nearby stations. The survivors told the same story. Korthak warships had appeared without warning, overwhelming the minimal defense forces in minutes. The Dominion had planted their flags and declared the systems under their protection. The council convened in emergency session. The chamber buzzed with panic and angry voices. Representatives shouted over each other, while translation algorithms struggled to keep up. War Master Draktar entered the chamber with confident steps and took his seat calmly. He looked completely unbothered by the chaos around him. Verathon slammed his hand on the podium, calling for order. War Master Draktar. The Korthak Dominion has launched unprovoked attacks on 5 sovereign systems. This council demands an immediate explanation. Draktar stood slowly, his massive frame casting shadows across nearby seats. Unprovoked? These systems requested protection. When this council refused to provide it, they accepted our offer instead. We have harmed no one. We have protected the helpless. You call military invasion protection? Krotok hissed. We have reports of orbital bombardments. We destroyed abandoned military installations to prevent their misuse. Draktar replied smoothly. All civilian populations are unharmed and living under our benevolent oversight. Ja'ara stood up, her voice shaking with anger. You mean living under occupation? This is conquest dressed in pleasant words. Call it what you wish, Draktar said. The facts remain. These worlds needed defenders. We answered their call. If this council had acted 3 months ago, perhaps the situation would be different. But you chose endless debate over action. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some supported immediate military response. Others called for economic sanctions. A few suggested negotiations. Nothing was decided. After 6 hours of circular debate, Virathon called a recess. In a private chamber, the real discussion began among the council's most powerful members. We need to show strength, Krotak insisted. If we do nothing, the Korthak will take everything. With what forces? Virathon asked bitterly. The Zephrani coalition has what? 80 ships? The Meridian Empire can field perhaps 200. If we strip every defensive post, do you think that will intimidate the Dominion? A Velen representative, a floating being of organized gas, pulsed with distress. Our intelligence suggests the Korthak have mobilized over 800 warships. They have been building their fleet since they joined the council. The room went silent. 800 ships. The number was staggering. Ja'ara accessed her datapad and pulled up reports. It is worse than that. Our analysts believe this is just the first wave. Korthak construction facilities are operating at full capacity. They are building more ships every month. Then we are finished, someone whispered. No. Virathon stood up straight, forcing confidence into his voice he did not feel. We pool all available military assets. Every ship, every species. We create a defensive line they cannot cross. Over the next week, the Council worked frantically to gather forces. The Meridian Empire committed 187 operational warships. Their entire remaining fleet. The Zephrani added 73. The Velens contributed 42. Dozens of smaller species added what they could. Even converted civilian vessels with hastily mounted weapons. The final count was 284 ships. It was pathetic compared to the Korthak Armada. But it was everything they had. Admiral Vera Kos of the Meridian Navy was given command of the defensive fleet. He was old, a veteran of the last major conflict over a century ago. He studied the force composition and shook his head grimly. Half these ships should be in museums, he told Varathon privately. The other half are civilian transports pretending to be warships. Against 800 Korthak vessels, we will last perhaps an hour. Then we make that hour count, Virathon replied. We show the galaxy that the Council will not surrender. Without a fight, during one planning session, a young aide suggested contacting Earth. The room fell silent. The humans? Krotok scoffed. They could not be bothered to attend a single council meeting in 50 years. You think they will risk their ships for us? Ja'ara considered it carefully. Perhaps not. But Lieutenant Choi has maintained some contacts with their outposts. We could send a message. Officially. Request assistance. A waste of time, Varathon said. But he looked desperate enough to try anything. Very well. Send the message. For the record, if nothing else, when historians write about this disaster, let them note we asked everyone for help. Lieutenant Sujin Choi volunteered to carry the message personally. She took a fast courier ship and set course for the Sol system. 2 weeks of travel at maximum speed. While she was gone, the Korthak made their move. Long-range sensors detected a massive fleet departing from Dominion space. 800 warships moving in perfect formation, heading directly for the Threshold system, the last major defensive point before reaching the Council's core worlds. Draktar sent a message to the Council, broadcast openly so all species could hear it. His voice was calm and almost friendly. Honored Council members, the Korthak Dominion is advancing to secure additional systems in need of protection. We advise all vessels to withdraw from the Threshold system within 48 hours. Any ships remaining will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. We do not wish violence, but we will not be denied. ATS. It was a declaration of war wrapped in diplomatic language. Admiral Veracruz gathered the defensive fleet at Threshold. The ships took up positions around the system's 2 inhabited planets, creating overlapping fields of fire as best they could. They had 36 hours until the Korthak arrived. The waiting was terrible. Crew members checked and rechecked their systems. Captains sent messages home to their families. Everyone knew what was coming. Zira joined the fleet aboard the Meridian flagship. She had no military training, but she refused to wait safely behind the lines while others fought. If this was the end, she would face it with them. On the bridge, she stood next to Admiral Veracruz and watched the tactical displays. "Do we have any chance?" she asked quietly. The old admiral smiled sadly. "There is always a chance, Ambassador. A very small one. Perhaps the Korthak will be overconfident. Perhaps we will get lucky. Perhaps a miracle will occur. I am not fond of relying on miracles. Neither am I. But sometimes that is all we have." 20 hours before the Korthak were scheduled to arrive, Sujin's courier ship returned. She had traveled faster than expected. Pushing her engines beyond safe limits, she sent an urgent message to the fleet. "I reached Earth. I delivered the message." They listened. Varathon felt a flicker of hope. "Will they send ships?" There was a long pause before Sujin answered. "Admiral Kwan told me to give you coordinates and a timeline." She said, "Earth will attend the next council meeting. In person. At the Korthak front line. 7 days. 7 days?" Varathon exploded. "The battle begins in 20 hours. What good does 7 days do us?" "I think," Sujin said carefully, "she means for us to hold the line until they arrive." Krotok laughed bitterly. "So, the humans will show up to inspect the wreckage. How generous." But Jayara noticed something in Sujin's voice, excitement mixed with disbelief. "Lieutenant, what did you see at Earth?" "I saw the future, Ambassador. I saw what humanity has been building for 50 years while we held meetings." Sujin's voice became stronger. "Hold the line. Whatever it takes. They are coming." The Korthak fleet arrived exactly on schedule, filling the sensors with contacts. 800 warships, each one a predator built for destruction. They moved with precision that spoke of endless training and absolute confidence. Admiral Veracruz looked at his 284 ships, a desperate collection of old veterans and converted civilian craft. Then, he opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Veracruz. I will not lie to you. We are outmatched. But we fight anyway. For those who cannot fight. For our families. For the idea that bullies should not be allowed to take whatever they want. Today, we show the Korthak what free people can do when pushed too far. All ships, battle stations. Prepare to engage." The fleet powered up weapons and shields. On 284 ships, crews stood ready. The storm had arrived. 2 weeks earlier, Lieutenant Sujin Choi guided her small courier ship toward the Sol system. She had made this journey twice before, visiting her father's homeworld, but never with such urgency. The moment she crossed into human-monitored space, her sensors went wild. Contacts everywhere. Automated defense platforms, patrol routes, sensor grids overlapping in complex patterns. This was not the minimal defense network she remembered from her last visit. A sleek patrol craft appeared from seemingly nowhere, matching her velocity perfectly. A calm voice came through her communications system. Unknown vessel. This is Terran Defense Patrol 7. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Sujin transmitted her credentials. This is Lieutenant Sujin Choi of the Lyrany Collective, carrying an urgent message from the Galactic Council to Earth's leadership. I request permission to approach. There was a pause. Then the patrol craft took up position alongside her. Follow our heading, Lieutenant. You are cleared to approach Lunar Command. Do not deviate from the designated flight path. As she followed the patrol craft deeper into the system, Sujin could not stop looking at her sensors. Ships everywhere, moving in coordinated patterns. Massive structures orbiting the outer planets. Construction facilities in the asteroid belt, working non-stop. The entire system hummed with activity. This was not what the Council believed Earth to be. This was not a primitive world hiding in isolation. They approached Earth's moon, and Sujin saw it. Lunar Command Station, a massive facility built into the moon's surface and extending into orbit. Docking bays, weapon platforms, communication arrays. It looked like a fortress. She docked carefully and was met by a security team. They were professional, but not hostile, scanning her thoroughly before escorting her through corridors that gleamed with clean efficiency. Admiral Jihei Kwon waited in a conference room with windows overlooking Earth below. She was perhaps 60 years old. Gray hair pulled back, wearing a dark blue uniform with rank insignia. Sujin did not recognize. Her eyes were sharp and measuring. Lieutenant Choi, welcome to Lunar Command. I understand you carry a message from the Council? Sujin stood at attention and delivered the message formally. She explained about the Korthak invasion, the 5 fallen systems, the 800 warships heading for Council space. She described the desperate defensive fleet of fewer than 300 ships. Admiral Kwon listened without interrupting, her face neutral. When Sujin finished, Kwon asked precise questions. What weapons did the Korthak use? What were their tactical patterns? How many ships could the Council actually field? What was their command structure? Sujin answered as best she could, but she felt embarrassed. The Council's military capabilities sounded pathetic when laid out clearly. Finally, Kwon sat back and was quiet for a long moment. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Admiral, I know Earth has no obligation to help us, Sujin said. The Council has not exactly welcomed humanity warmly. But there are billions of innocent people in the path of this invasion. Any assistance Earth could provide would be deeply appreciated. Kwon smiled slightly. You are diplomatic, Lieutenant. A useful skill. She stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. Tell me, what does the Council think Earth has been doing for the past 50 years? Most believe humanity is isolationist, afraid of galactic politics. Some think we are too primitive to participate meaningfully. And you? What do you think? Sujin hesitated. My father told me stories about human history, about how humans respond to threats. I think Earth has been preparing. Smart man, your father. Kwon turned back to face her. We received every council meeting invitation, Lieutenant. Every single one. We read every agenda. We watch the broadcasts of every session. Sujin was confused. Then why never attend? Because we were busy. Kwon tapped a command on her datapad. The windows changed, displaying images. Come, let me show you what we have been building. The first image showed massive shipyards orbiting Earth. Dozens of them, each capable of constructing multiple vessels simultaneously. Orbital construction facilities around Earth, Mars, and the outer planets. Kwon explained. We have 47 major shipyards, operating continuously. The next image showed the asteroid belt, transformed into an industrial complex. Mining operations, refineries, manufacturing centers, all connected by a network of automated transport systems. Raw materials. We stripped 3 large asteroids completely, and are working on a 4th. Enough metal to build thousands of ships. More images followed. Antimatter production facilities using solar collectors. Training centers on Mars, where crews practiced constantly. Research stations developing new weapons and defense systems. Automated factories producing everything from hull plates to computer systems. Sujin stared in shock. This is impossible. This scale of industry would take centuries to build. It took 50 years of focused effort, Kwon corrected. While your council debated seating arrangements and trade regulations, we built this. Every human nation contributed. Every resource we could spare went into this project. But why? Why build such a massive military force? Kwon's expression turned serious. Because we know how this story goes, Lieutenant. We have seen it in our own history dozens of times. A group of peaceful nations form an alliance. They grow comfortable. They let their defenses decline. Then a predator appears, and no one is ready to stop them. She paused. We knew the galaxy would eventually face a species like the Korthak. We decided Earth would be ready when that day came. The Council thinks you are cowards, Sujin whispered. I know. We let them think that. Better to be underestimated than to show our hand too early. Kwon pulled up another display. This is the Terran Defense Fleet. Sujin's breath caught. The screen showed ship after ship. Carriers longer than any vessel she had ever seen. Cruisers bristling with weapons. Destroyers built for speed and firepower. Support ships. Repair vessels. Troop transports. All of them displaying the same, unified insignia. How many? Sujin asked. 2,000 warships fully operational. Another 500 in final construction phases. Every ship is modern, built in the last 20 years, using our latest technology. Every crew has trained together for years. Kwon looked directly at Sujin. We did not come to your council because we were not ready. Now we are. Sujin felt tears forming. You will help us? We will do more than help. Kwon called up a star map showing the threshold system. Tell your Admiral Vera Kos to hold the line for 7 days. That is how long it will take us to mobilize the full fleet and reach his position. I do not know. Against 800 Korthak ships, our fleet might not last 7 hours. Then tell him to retreat and delay. Do whatever it takes. We are coming. Kwon handed her a data chip. These are the coordinates where we will arrive. Make sure your forces are clear of this area. We are bringing a lot of ships, and we need room. Sujin took the chip with shaking hands. Admiral, the Council has treated Earth terribly. Why risk your people for us? Kwon smiled, and it was genuinely warm. Because 50 years ago, Earth was invited to join a community of peaceful species. We liked that idea. We wanted to be part of it. But we also knew that peace only survives when someone is strong enough to defend it. Since the Council could not be that someone, we decided Earth would be. She walked Sujin back to her ship personally. At the docking bay, she placed a hand on the younger woman's shoulder. Tell Ambassador Jiara we remember her defending Earth in Council sessions. Tell her humanity does not forget its friends. And tell Admiral Veracos that he does not fight alone. Earth is coming to the meeting. Better late than never. Sujin launched from Lunar Command in a daze. As she cleared the moon's orbit, she looked back at the Sol system with new eyes. The patrol craft that had seemed impressive earlier now looked like tiny pieces of a massive machine. Everything she could see was coordinated, organized, ready. She pushed her engines well past safe limits on the return journey. The Council needed to know. They needed to hold on just a little longer. Behind her, throughout the Sol system, alarms began sounding. Crews rushed to their ships. Admiral Kwon stood in the Fleet Command Center, surrounded by displays showing 2,000 warships beginning to move. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Quan's voice rang across every vessel. "We have received a distress call from the Galactic Council. The Korthak Dominion has invaded Council space with 800 warships. Our friends are outnumbered and outgunned." She paused, letting that sink in. "For 50 years, we have prepared for this moment. We have built this fleet to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Today, we show the galaxy what Earth stands for. All ships, begin mobilization sequence. We depart for Threshold System in 6 hours, and we are bringing everything we have." Across 2,000 ships, crews moved with practiced efficiency. Engines powered up. Weapons came online. Supply vessels began their final loading procedures. Earth was going to war, not for conquest, not for glory, but because someone had to stand between the peaceful and the predators. And humanity had spent 50 years making sure they would be ready when that day came. Sujin's ship burst into the Threshold System, transmitting her message on every frequency. She had pushed her engines so hard that warning lights covered her control panel. But she had made the journey in record time. "This is Lieutenant Choi to Admiral Veracruz. I have returned from Earth. They are coming. I repeat, Earth is sending help. Hold the line for 7 days." On the bridge of the Meridian flagship, the message caused stunned silence. Then Verathon started laughing, a bitter sound without humor. 7 days? The Korthak arrive in 18 hours. What good does 7 days do us? And Dabu. But Sujin was already broadcasting the data chip's contents to the fleet. Coordinates appeared on every tactical display, marking a point in space well behind the defensive line. Admiral Quan said to keep this area clear. "They need room for the fleet." "The fleet?" Krotok hissed. "How many ships are the humans sending? 5? 10? This is madness." Sujin's voice shook with emotion. "I cannot tell you what I saw. You would not believe me. But trust me when I say we must hold the line. Earth is coming, and they are bringing hope with them." Admiral Veracruz studied the coordinates carefully. "Very well, Lieutenant. We adjust our defensive positions to keep that area clear. But 18 hours from now, we fight regardless. All ships, prepare for battle. May fortune favor us all." Jiara pulled Sujin aside on a private channel. "What did you really see there?" "Everything, Ambassador. They have been building an entire war machine while we held meetings. The scale is beyond anything the Council has created." Sujin paused. "They watched us, Ambassador. They watched every council session. They knew exactly what we were becoming. And they prepared for the day we would need them." The hours crawled by. Crew members tried to rest but could not sleep. Engineers performed final checks on weapons systems, knowing most of their ships were already operating beyond design specifications. Captains wrote messages to their families, just in case. On the Council flagship, Verathon stared at the tactical display showing 800 Korthak contacts approaching steadily. Next to them, his own fleet of 284 ships looked pathetic. "We are going to die here," he said quietly to Admiral Veracruz. The old admiral nodded. "Probably. But we die standing. And maybe, just maybe, we buy enough time for something to change." The Korthak fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel with perfect precision. 800 warships spread across space in a formation that spoke of absolute confidence. Each ship was a masterwork of military engineering, armored plates over powerful engines and devastating weapons. War Master Drokhtar's face appeared on all frequencies. His expression showed no anger, just certainty. "Counselor Verathon, your fleet is brave but foolish. You have no chance of victory. I offer you one opportunity to withdraw. Take your ships and leave. We will occupy this system peacefully. Resist, and I will destroy every vessel you have brought here." Verathon wanted to surrender. Every logical part of his mind screamed that fighting was suicide. But he looked at his crew. At Jaira, standing beside him. At Admiral Veracruz, waiting calmly for orders. He thought about the billions of people living in Council space, counting on someone to protect them. War Master Draktar, the Galactic Council rejects your ultimatum. This system is under our protection. If you want it, you will have to take it. Draktar's smile was like watching a predator bare its teeth. So be it. All ships, advance. Destroy any vessel that resists. The battle began with the Korthak launching a massive missile barrage. Thousands of warheads streaked across space toward the defensive line. Admiral Vera Kos barked orders. All ships, point defense active. Interceptors launch. The Council fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams and kinetic weapons tried to shoot down the incoming missiles. Small fighter craft darted between the warheads, destroying what they could, but there were too many. Missiles broke through the defensive fire. The first one struck a Zephrani cruiser, overwhelming its shields and tearing through the hull. The ship broke apart in a flash of light and debris. Then another hit, and another. Within the first 10 minutes, the Council lost 12 ships. The Korthak had not lost any. Reform the line, Vera Kos ordered. Concentrate. Fire on their lead elements. The Council fleet poured weapons fire into the advancing Korthak ships. They managed to damage a few, destroying shields and scoring hits on armor, but the Korthak vessels were built tough. They absorbed punishment and kept coming. The Korthak returned fire with disciplined volleys. They targeted the Council's larger ships, the ones with actual military capability. A Meridian dreadnought, pride of the fleet, took multiple hits to its engines and began tumbling out of formation. Jeara watched the tactical display with horror. Ships were dying. People she knew, friends and colleagues, were being killed right in front of her, and there was nothing she could do. How long can we hold? She asked quietly. Admiral Vera Kos did not take his eyes off the tactical display. The battle raged for 2 hours. The Council fleet fought desperately, using every trick experienced captains could think of. They concentrated fire to bring down individual Korthak ships. They used the system's planets for cover. They launched hit-and-run attacks with smaller, faster vessels. It was not enough. The Korthak had more ships, better weapons, superior armor, and well-trained crews. They advanced methodically, destroying Council vessels one by one. The casualty count climbed. 20 ships lost. 30. 45. 50. Admiral Vera Kos made the hardest decision of his life. All ships, begin retreat. We cannot win here. Fall back to secondary positions. Verathon wanted to argue but knew it was right. They had tried. They had bled. Staying would just mean dying for nothing. The Council fleet began pulling back, the faster ships covering the retreat of damaged vessels. The Korthak pursued, sensing victory. Then the sensors officer on the Meridian flagship gasped. Admiral Vera Kos looked at his tactical display. Space itself was rippling in the area Sujin had marked. Not one distortion or 10, but hundreds of them, all appearing simultaneously. What is that? Verathon demanded. War Master Draktar saw it too. On his flagship, alarms blared as sensors struggled to track the massive energy signatures. Identify those contacts, Draktar ordered. Before anyone could answer, space tore open. Slipspace ruptures formed in perfect geometric patterns. Each one, a doorway, from somewhere else. The scale was massive, far larger than anything normally used for fleet movements. The first ship emerged, a human carrier, over 2 kilometers long, bristling with launch bays and weapon systems. Then, another appeared beside it. And another. Destroyers poured through the ruptures in groups of 10. Cruisers followed in tight formations. Support vessels and repair ships took up positions. More carriers. More destroyers. More cruisers. The Council fleet stopped retreating. Crews, staring at their sensors, in disbelief. The Korthak fleet halted their advance, trying to process what they were seeing. Ships kept coming. 50. 100. 300. 500. They filled space with their presence, each one displaying the same insignia. Earth, Defense Force. 1,000 ships. 1,500. 2,000. Every single vessel was modern and clean, showing no signs of age or neglect. They moved together with a precision that spoke of endless training. Within minutes, they had formed a battle formation that made the Korthak's disciplined approach look clumsy. The 2,000 human ships positioned themselves between the battered Council fleet and the Korthak armada. It was the largest military force anyone in the galaxy had ever seen assembled in one place. On every ship in both fleets, the same message came through. Admiral Ji-Hae Kwan's face appeared on communication screens, her expression calm and professional. "This is Admiral Kwan of the Terran Defense Fleet. We apologize for our tardiness to the Council meeting. We had some distance to travel." She paused, letting that sink in. "War Master Draktar, you and I need to talk." Aboard the Council flagship, Virathon collapsed into his chair, his legs suddenly unable to support him. Around the bridge, crew members were crying, laughing, some just staring in shock. Ja'ara found her voice first. "They came. They actually came." Sujin stood at her station, tears streaming down her face. I told you they were building something." Admiral Verakos, the old warrior who had commanded fleets for decades, looked at the tactical display showing 2,000 human warships and started laughing. Not the bitter laugh of despair, but genuine joy. "I asked for a miracle," he said. "I think we just got one." On the Korthak flagship, War Master Draktar stared at his tactical display in silence. 800 ships had seemed unstoppable. Against the Council's pathetic fleet, victory had been certain. Now he faced 2,000 warships he knew nothing about, from a species everyone thought was too afraid to leave their home system. For the first time in his military career, Draktar felt uncertain. He had expected to fight frightened civilians in converted cargo ships. Instead, he faced what looked like a professional military force that dwarfed his own fleet. Admiral Kwan's face remained on his screen, waiting patiently for his response. Draktar took a deep breath and opened a channel. "Admiral Kwan, I admit I am surprised. The Council led us to believe humanity was isolationist and weak. The Council believed what we allowed them to believe." Kwan replied calmly. "Now, shall we discuss terms? Or do we need to resolve this the hard way?" The space between the two fleets crackled with tension. 2,000 human warships faced 800 Korthak vessels, with the battered remnants of the Council fleet behind the human line. War Master Draktar studied the formation of human ships carefully. They had positioned themselves in overlapping layers, each group supporting the others. It was a defensive formation, but one that could shift to offense instantly. Whoever commanded this fleet understood military strategy deeply. "Terms?" Draktar repeated. "You speak as if you have already won." "Admiral, my fleet has fought 100 battles. We have never been defeated." Admiral Kwan's expression did not change. "War Master, I am offering you a chance to avoid finding out what defeat feels like. Your fleet is impressive. Your crews are clearly well trained, but you are outnumbered more than 2-1 by a force you know nothing about. This does not have to end in bloodshed." Draktar felt anger rising. The humans were trying to intimidate him without firing a shot. "You think numbers alone guarantee victory? Perhaps your ships are impressive to look at. But can they fight? Only one way to find out," Kwan replied calmly. "But I would prefer not to. Here are my terms. Withdraw from all systems you have occupied in the last 6 months. Pay reparations to the species you displaced. Return to your pre-expansion borders. Do this, and no Korthak ship will be harmed today. And if I refuse, then we will disable your fleet, extract your crews safely, and tow your ships back to Dominion space anyway. The only difference is how many Korthak warriors die in the process." Kwan leaned forward slightly. I am giving you a chance to save your people. War Master, I suggest you take it. Draktar cut the transmission. On his bridge, his officers waited for orders. War Master, what are your commands? His second asked. Draktar looked at the tactical display again. 2,000 ships. The humans had been silent for 50 years, and then they showed up with this. What else had they built that he could not see? What weapons did those ships carry? But the Korthak Dominion did not back down. They did not surrender. They fought. All ships, prepare for battle. We will show these humans that the Korthak do not fear numbers. He opened a fleet-wide channel. Warriors of the Dominion. Today we face an enemy that thinks they can frighten us with their fleet size. They are wrong. We have crushed every opponent we have faced. These humans will be no different. Attack pattern Drakthar. All ships, advance. The Korthak fleet surged forward, 800 warships accelerating toward the human lines. On the human flagship, Admiral Kwan sighed. I gave him a chance. Battle stations. All ships. Defensive formation. Beta 7. Rules of engagement. Disable. Do not destroy. We are here to stop a war, not start a massacre. The two fleets collided in a storm of weapons fire. The Korthak opened with their standard overwhelming missile barrage, thousands of warheads designed to saturate enemy defenses. It had worked perfectly against the Council fleet. Against the human fleet, it failed completely. Point defense systems on every human ship activated simultaneously. Streams of kinetic rounds and energy beams created a wall of fire that intercepted the missiles while they were still kilometers away. Advanced targeting computers tracked and eliminated threats with mechanical precision. Not a single missile reached the human line. The Korthak commanders stared in shock. Their most effective opening move had been negated entirely. Then the humans returned fire. Railgun rounds traveling at incredible speeds punched through Korthak shields like they were not there. The impacts were precise, targeted at weapons systems and engines, disabling rather than destroying. Plasma torpedoes followed, overwhelming shield generators without penetrating hull armor. Human fighter craft poured from the carriers, small and fast, swarming around damaged Korthak ships and cutting off their escape routes. But what impressed the watching Council fleet most was not the technology. It was the coordination. Every human ship knew exactly what it was supposed to do. Destroyers created overlapping fields of fire. Cruisers protected the carriers while launching devastating long-range strikes. Support vessels moved damaged ships out of the line of fire. Electronic warfare specialists blinded Korthak sensors while protecting human communications. They fought like a single organism with 2,000 bodies. The Korthak fleet, despite their training and experience, could not match it. They were used to fighting opponents who panicked under pressure, who made mistakes, who could be overwhelmed. The humans made no mistakes. Within 30 minutes, 100 Korthak ships had been disabled, their weapons destroyed, and engines offline. Human rescue ships moved in immediately, offering aid to the damaged vessels and pulling escape pods to safety. Draktar watched his fleet being systematically taken apart and felt something he had never experienced in battle before. Despair. Focus fire on their carriers, he ordered. Take out their command ships. The Korthak fleet concentrated their attacks on the human carriers. Massive vessels that should have been vulnerable to focused assault. But when the Korthak ships moved to attack, they found themselves walking into carefully prepared kill zones. Human destroyers appeared on their flanks, pouring fire into their exposed sides. The carriers themselves proved to have surprisingly heavy defensive armament. Another 50 Korthak ships were disabled in the next hour. On the Council flagship, Virathon watched the battle with his mouth hanging open. This is not possible. No one fights like this. Admiral Veracos, the experienced military commander, understood what he was seeing. They trained together for years, decades perhaps. Every captain knows what the others will do before they do it. Every crew has practiced until these maneuvers are instinct. He shook his head in admiration. This is what a real military force looks like. Jara noticed something else. They are not destroying the Korthak ships. Look, every hit is precise. They disable and move on. Sujin pulled up data on the human rescue operations. They are pulling Korthak crew members from damaged ships and providing medical aid. They are treating injured enemies. The battle continued for 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Korthak fought bravely, but they were simply outmatched in every way. Better technology, better training, better coordination, and more ships. By the end, 600 Korthak vessels were disabled, floating dead in space with their crews rescued by human ships. 150 had surrendered when they saw what was happening. Only 50 were still operational, clustered around Drokhtar's flagship. Admiral Kwan opened a channel again. War Master Drokhtar, your fleet is finished. You fought well, and your warriors showed great courage. But this is over. Surrender. And I give you my word that every Korthak crew member will be returned safely to your space. Drokhtar looked around his bridge. His ship was surrounded by human vessels. Weapons trained on him from every direction. His fleet was destroyed. He had lost. Why? He asked. Why do you not kill us? We would have destroyed you. Without mercy. Kwan's expression softened slightly. Because that is not why we built this fleet, War Master. We did not spend 50 years preparing for war so we could be conquerors. We did it so we could protect those who needed protection. Your crews are not our enemies. Your government's actions were the problem. You shame me with your mercy. No. I offer you a chance to return home and tell your people the truth. The galaxy does not need more warriors like you. It needs protectors. Perhaps the Korthak can learn the difference. Drokhtar considered this for a long moment. Then he opened a fleet-wide channel. All Korthak ships, this is War Master Drokhtar. Stand down. We have been defeated. The words tasted like poison, but they were true. The remaining Korthak ships powered down their weapons. Around them, human vessels moved in to provide assistance to the damaged ships. Admiral Kwan transmitted terms: complete withdrawal from all occupied systems, reparations for the displaced populations, reduction of Korthak territory to pre-expansion borders. War Master Drokhtar accepted them all. He had no choice. Over the next 3 days, the human fleet helped repair enough Korthak ships to make them space-worthy for the journey home. They provided supplies, shared repair techniques, and treated injured Korthak crew members in their medical facilities. Drokhtar visited one of the human medical ships to check on his wounded. He found Korthak warriors being treated alongside human medical personnel, receiving the same care as human crew members would get. A human doctor, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, explained the treatment protocols to him. We are using regenerative techniques to repair the bone damage. Your people's physiology is challenging to work with, but we are managing. Why do you help us? Drokhtar asked. We came to conquer. We would have killed you. Dr. Chen looked at him with sad eyes. Because every person in this medical bay is someone's child, someone's friend, someone's family. War might be necessary sometimes, but cruelty never is. Drokhtar had no answer for that. When the Korthak fleet finally departed, limping home in shame, the Council fleet and the human fleet remained at threshold. Counselor Verathon requested a meeting with Admiral Kwan. She invited the entire Council leadership aboard the human flagship. They arrived expecting a military vessel. What they found was something else entirely. Yes, there were weapons and armor and all the tools of war, but there were also gardens growing under artificial sunlight, art installations created by the crew, a library filled with books from Earth. Admiral Kwan met them in a conference room with windows showing the stars. Counselors, welcome. I apologize for the delay in attending council meetings. We had some preparation to do first. Verathon, for the first time in his political career, felt genuine humility. Admiral Kwan, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize for how we treated Earth. We called you cowards. We mocked your absence. We were fools. You were comfortable, Quan corrected gently. There is a difference. You built a society focused on culture and trade and cooperation. Those are good things, but you forgot that peace only survives when someone is willing to defend it. Jeara stepped forward. Why did you really stay away, Admiral? The truth, please. Quan smiled. Because we watched your council sessions, Ambassador. We saw you debate seating arrangements for months. We watched you form 17 committees to study whether to form a committee to discuss military cooperation. We saw a governing body that had forgotten how to make hard decisions. She pulled up historical data on a display. In the 50 years since first contact, the Council has held 247 sessions. You know how many of those addressed military preparedness? 4. And those 4 resulted in no concrete action. The Council members looked ashamed. We knew that eventually, someone like the Korthak would appear. A predator species that saw opportunity in your weakness. We decided that when that day came, Earth would be ready to help. So we stayed home and built what was needed. Krotok spoke up. You built 2,000 warships. That is more than the entire Council combined. What do you want in return? We want you to be able to protect yourselves, Quan replied. Starting immediately, we are offering technical assistance and training to any Council species that wants to modernize their defense forces, not to build empires, not to threaten each other, but so that next time a War Master Draktar appears, you can defend your own systems. 1-5. Varathon felt tears in his eyes. You would share your technology? After how we treated you? Yes. Because that is what partners do. And because a strong council serves everyone's interests, including Earth's. Over the next months, human technicians and advisors spread throughout council space. They helped upgrade defensive systems, trained new crews, and shared knowledge freely. The council species learned that humans were not trying to control them but to empower them. 1 year after the Battle of Threshold, the Galactic Council held a session. Earth's seat was no longer empty. Admiral Quan sat there with a full delegation of human representatives. The session began with Varathon formally apologizing once more to humanity and thanking them for their aid. Quan stood and addressed the council. Honorable members, Earth accepts your thanks, but wants to make something clear. We did not do this for gratitude. We did it because it was right. Because when you have the power to protect others, you have the responsibility to use it wisely. She paused, looking around the chamber. For 50 years, we skipped these meetings, but we never stopped paying attention. We never stopped caring about the galactic community. We just showed our care differently, not through words and debates, but through preparation and action. Jeara stood and began applauding. Within moments, the entire council joined her. 200 species standing and honoring the world that had saved them. Outside, in the space around Nexus Station, human warships patrolled alongside vessels from dozens of council species. The combined fleet trained together, shared techniques, and built the bonds of true alliance. Earth had finally come to the galactic table, not as supplicants or conquerors, but as equals who had earned their place through demonstrated capability and moral courage. Admiral Quan looked at Earth's nameplate and smiled. The seat had been empty for 50 years, but those years had not been wasted. Earth had used that time to become what the galaxy needed most. Not politicians who debated endlessly, but protectors who acted when action was needed. And now, standing guard over a galaxy that had learned to value strength tempered with mercy, Earth finally felt at home among the stars.